Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are on to episode 2 of season 4 already, this one entitled Home. Brian, tell us a little bit about the legacy of this episode.
Well, this one has a pretty big legacy, really. It's definitely what you'd call a fan favourite. Most fans list this when they're thinking about, when they're listing memorable episodes or episodes people should watch if they're going to get into the show. But this primarily, I think, is remembered as being the episode that got banned from network television, from national television, from all television. It basically just got banned. They weren't allowed to broadcast it. I think it got broadcast the first time round, and then there was such a landslide of complaints that when it came to syndication, they weren't allowed to air this particular one.
Understandable, I suppose.
Yes. I do have to say, and we'll get into it, but I can quite understand why. It's still pretty shocking, even today, to be honest. Think Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and well, that's pretty much what you get. It's.
I actually was thinking Wrong Turn.
Wrong Turn, yeah. But I see Wrong Turn as being a riff on Texas Chainsaw Massacre anyway. But yeah, definitely more Wrong Turn than Texas Chainsaw. But it's all of the same ilk. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't like those movies, so that doesn't bode well for this episode. We'll see. Let's get into it.
Are we going to look at where this one lands?
Mm-hmm. You want to throw a wild guess out?
It will be wild guess, Brian. So you say it's a fan favourite, which kind of gives me an idea that it's high up there. But it's not a legacy episode, so I don't see it breaking the top 10. I'm going to go for 23.
Okay. Well, it's twice as high as that.
Wow.
It's at number 11.
Wow.
So it didn't crack the top 10, but it did just sit right outside it. So yeah, it's at number 11. Now, it's worth noting that in checking where this particular episode sat just before we went on tonight, I didn't notice for the first time in a long time, for the first time that I've ever noticed, in fact, that the number one spot for the 217 episodes has actually just changed.
Right, okay. Wow.
It's always been a particular episode that I've seen that has been at the number one spot, and Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose has just knocked that episode off the number one spot and is now sitting in number one.
You see, that makes perfect sense. We both gave it glowing reviews. We just covered it ourselves on this podcast. Where literally tens of people listened to, and they just voted in their droves. But so it's we caused that.
I think we're certainly to blame for any new kind of vibrations in the IMDb scores of the X-Files. But no, in all fairness, obviously the show has just gone to Disney Plus. I think it probably is finding quite a new audience of people who've never seen it before. You got a younger generation who've probably heard about it from the parents and stuff. So yeah, it stands to reason that whole IMDb list now is probably going to start fluctuating over the next few years as more people kind of come to the show.
Well, if it is the X-Files Revisited fault as well, I would be interested maybe next time in finding out whether Tessos Dos Bichos has removed itself from last place.
From the bottom spot. It should. It's not a great episode, but I can think of a dozen that are worse than it.
Yes.
There's no way that's the worst episode of the show, not by a long shot. But if our show is partly responsible for anyone out there casting votes, which it is, let's face it, for casting votes on the IMDb scoreboard, so to speak, do let us know in the comments. We'd like to hear from you. If you listen to the show on a podcast outlet, iTunes, whatever, Spotify, or if you watch us here on YouTube, do let us know. Drop by, say hi, let us know who you are, and yeah, it's always good to hear from you. We got a few commenters on our channel, some regulars, and it's really good to see them every week commenting in the comments on YouTube. When I post our episodes on there, I look forward to reading their comments each week. So yeah, jump on board that train. But
now let's jump into this movie episode that's all about family. Family
it's all
values.
about family. Yeah,
About family.
Yeah. It's the perfect episode to go straight to Disney Plus.
Absolutely. If anything screams Disney, it's this one.
It's this episode. I literally think Walt Disney is spinning in his grave right now.
And his shallow, freshly made grave on a rain-soaked night.
Yeah. And on that note, nice segue. So we open up the episode and we see a baby being born and then being buried.
Alive.
Yeah. And the father, we can assume, is crying.
Upset.
Yeah. Well, he's very upset. He's buried the child. He's very upset. He's crying. There's storm all around, and it's just it's quite a horrendous thing to look at. They look pretty deformed, these guys, the father and whoever the other two are. But we go from there to a baseball game. So it's kind of like the next day. It's sunny. The rain has kind of disappeared. A bunch of kids are playing baseball outside the Peacock Farm. We know it's the Peacock Farm because when they lose the ball over the fence, none of them are willing to go on there to get it. It's like, that's the Peacock's Farm, yo. Let's stay away from there. Though why you would play a game of baseball right outside of it,
close.
that close, I would, I'll never know. One of the players, one of the kids, he stands on a particular spot, keeps digging his foot in it, because he's playing baseball, and blood starts oozing out of the ground, which kind of brings them to, well, we see a little hand. We know it's a baby. It's just, So right off the bat, opening sequence.
Yeah.
Go.
What a gruesome opening. It really is. Like it's letting you know that this is the X-Files playing in its most, I would say, horror-centric vibe so far. Everything about it feels very horror-centric. There are some deviations from that in certain scenes, but for the most part, it's a very horrific tale. We get that rain-soaked night. We get the blood-soaked birth. The baby being buried alive, which is probably the image that got this episode banned. I mean, there's more, but if there's one image,
certain something under the bed is also
yes. But yes, it's an awesome opening, and it's just like I was literally fist pumping the air, just purely like, this is amazing. This was an episode when a particular song is played later on. Flashbacks.
Right, okay.
So I did remember this one while I was watching it, but at the time, just at the start, it's such a wonderful opening. And I loved the change from the rain-soaked horrific night to the brown cornfields, the kids playing ball. Just that switch was just terrific as well. Although, like you said, why are they playing baseball there? It's a field. It's literally a massive field with only that house there. Which also brings me to the question, why didn't the guys just bury it on their land? Why did they walk 2 meters by their fence and bury it? Wouldn't you go further?
Maybe they didn't want the pigs digging it up. Yeah. Well, to be honest, if you really want to get rid of it, feed it to the pigs.
I was thinking that, Brian, but I'm so glad you said it first.
It's just, but it is horrendous. It is. Well, I'll say it is the most horrendous opening of any X-Files.
Yes.
I mean, when you're dealing with kids, particularly newborn babies, it doesn't get any more low than that, any more gruesome. Yeah,
it's not even like a mercy death.
No,
they don't do anything quick, even though I know that'd still be awful, but they don't do anything. They just bury it and let it suffocate.
Though in their minds that probably is a mercy death, because these guys aren't exactly high on the roll call of academia, are they? So I mean, they know how to set a good trap, but
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's certainly grim, and I can very much understand why a lot of people may be tuning in for the first time. Not even X-Files fans, but at this point, the show's had so much of a reputation. It's coming back after its most successful season 3, which is when the show really became the phenomenon that it was. So a lot of new audience came into season 4. So I imagine this was like, first time, right, I'm going to sit down and finally watch this X-Files, see what it's all about. Oh! No! So, yeah, I can understand the complaints, and I would imagine this probably lost a lot of people. It's probably not a good position, actually, to put this episode as the second episode of the season. Because I would imagine they really shot themselves in the foot by doing that, bringing in a lot of new audience, then going, right, we're going to hit you with the hardest possible way we can. But by the end of this episode, you will know if you're a fan of the show or not, or whether that's it. You're gone. You're out. So we go to Mulder practicing his throwing arm on the field while Scully works. Scully's kind of looking at the baby and looking at the site, and then Mulder hankers for simpler times, which pretty much brings up much of what this episode is about, which is the simpler times of when people used to leave their doors unlocked, and they used to know their community and be able to say who everybody was in their street, and that's very much what this particular episode is about, I feel, and the dangers which have encroached within suburbia, within the suburban households, quite literally at one point in this episode.
Yeah.
Sheriff Andy Taylor pops up. So I had to look this up because Mulder makes a comment.
Is it Amos and Andy? Is that no? Or?
No. So it's literally, so there's a cop show. We didn't get it over here. It was never big over here. But there's a cop show in America that was quite big, quite famous, and the sheriff in that was called Sheriff Andy Taylor.
Right.
And his deputy in the show was also called Barney Fife.
Barney Fife, yeah.
Which is the name of the deputy
Keystone
in this
Cops?
one.
No, it's not the Keystone Cops.
It's not Keystone Cops. No, it's
going to bug me now, Brian.
Yeah, probably. It's not. It's certainly nothing I'd heard of when I looked it up. So
I'm just saying, just throwing it out there, like a better prepared co-host would have that information at hand.
I looked it up. I just didn't take the name. It's just. I don't care to keep hold of that piece of knowledge. All you need to know is that, Andy Taylor and Barney Fife were two police officers in a cop show in America that was quite successful, which is why Mulder finds it endlessly amusing that these guys are called Andy Taylor and Barney Fife.
The Andy Griffith Show. For everybody out there, like me, wondering what it was, it's the Andy Griffith Show.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Still never heard of it. If you'd have told me what's the Andy Griffith Show right now, I don't know. I don't know. It's like, dude, you looked it up. That's how you found out Andy Taylor and Barney Fife. Still didn't know. Okay, so Mulder asks about the Peacock Farm, and the sheriff makes a lot of implications.
Oh, I love it.
And also says that he doesn't want things to change. But yeah, the implication pretty much being that there's possibly some inbreeding going on there. We just they keep themselves to themselves, so we let them keep themselves to themselves. Really, responsible policing.
It's like a dirty little secret almost. Just there's an almost shame in letting the outside police see this dirty little secret.
Yeah, big time. And I think the comment he makes about how he doesn't want things to change is very much rooted in that. I think he recognises that there is a danger on the outskirts, but he's never done anything about it because he doesn't want things to change. He's living under a delusion that things are still the way they used to be.
And I like that about this, because there's that implication that his inaction has caused what is going to happen next. Whereas if he had done the harder task and actually taken these people to task, they could have had the situation solved. But his reluctance to do that, and which I think is amazing, because the performer, the actor, is only in a couple of scenes, and yet somehow delivers that without giving you that information.
Yeah. So this is one of a few actors who are in this season. So when season 3 of the X-Files was playing, there was a show called Space Above and Beyond. That was spearheaded by Glenn Morgan and James Wong, obviously writers and directors of this show. Would also go on to do Final Destination, but they did the show Space Above and Beyond, which we should probably do on this. Once we've done Millennium and Lone Gunman and all that, if we really want to branch out and do what shows that the makers have done, go into Breaking Bad. Space Above and Beyond, it lasted one season, and they got told basically they weren't coming back. So in the last episode, they pretty much killed everyone off. It was actually quite a decent final episode, to be honest, but we lost. The humans lost, and most of the main actors that were in that show make an appearance throughout this season. So literally that show ended same time as season 3 of X-Files, and they pretty much jumped off that and all came straight into the X-Files. So we've got Kristen Cloak coming up. We've got, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he's in an episode called I think is it Never Again or something like that. It's pretty interesting to just see them all pop up, knowing that their show that they were all on together ended. You can see the makers of this show kind of throwing out some bones, keeping their careers alive. But
quite literally in this one.
Yeah. So they go to see the victim in a closet. It's
Is it not a bathroom? Is it a bath? I thought it was a bathroom.
I can't. It might be a washroom or something. Either way, it's the size of a closet. They got, because they don't have a proper morgue in their. So they go to see the victim, and Scully says that the baby inhaled dirt, which means it was alive, obviously, when it was buried. But the child is full of all manner of birth defects. Literally, this thing would have died probably, even if these guys, even if they hadn't.
I think the technical term that Scully uses is every birth defect known to man. It's horrific. Even it paints a mental picture, really.
And we never get like a full-on shot of it, but we get loads of little flash images, like whether it's the hand or the foot or just a little close-up on the skin to see the abrasions and the blisters. And it's just every parent's worst nightmare. It's sickening. It really is. But it's a very fine balancing act that is done in this episode with regards to the humour, most of which comes out of Mulder and Scully, their banter and their observations towards the like Barney Fife, and this, that, and the other. And it's like This episode could be done. It could be so misjudged, like so misjudged.
100%.
When like this, just even coming close to this subject matter. Oh, yeah. If you don't get it right, then you're not just missing. You're missing big time in like an offensive way, a really offensive way, kind of sickening, depraved, offensive way that makes you just go, "That's it, I'm out. This show's gone too far. It's actually pissed me off." But what they do in this episode with that balancing act of the humour and then the really dark stuff, spot on. Absolutely spot on. I feel like everyone in the writer's room for this one got called in there, and it's like, guys, we're treading a tightrope here. We've got to nail this. So yeah, the humour, just the stuff between Mulder and Scully is really great. Scully is really affected by it. She talks about the fears of having and then losing a child. Mulder jokes about his family line passing genetic muster before comforting Scully. He kind of realizes as well that I think he's put his foot in it, because he says to Scully that he never really imagined her having kids.
Yeah.
And then I think he realizes that, oh crap, I might have gone a bit too far there.
Yeah. And it actually gets hammered home later on by another mother who says to her that she's not a mother. You know, later on at the end of the scene, just pile on Scully episodes.
Yeah, pretty much. But of course, motherhood for Scully is going to become, well, it's massive for her character. This isn't just something they touch on here and it's like, that's it, next episode, never think about it again. Motherhood is very much a defining aspect of Scully's character throughout the rest of the series. It plays really big parts to her character.
Well, we know what happened to Queequeg.
He thinks he's still feeling sour about that and thinking, oh, if I can't even look after a dog, how am I going to manage a child? Yeah. I'm going to be a terrible mother. Okay. Mulder doesn't think that this is a case for them, which is, I'm surprised he didn't come out with some wacky theories at this point. It's just, it's Mulder we're talking about. We've seen a child with every major defect known to man, and he's got nothing.
Yep.
Like zilch. Mulder, are you feeling all right?
But there's something funny in the fact that he looks at this and goes, too pedestrian.
Yeah. So that is until Scully suggests that the mother of the child is most likely a woman being held against her will on the Peacock property. Mulder says he never saw Scully as a mother before, so that's when he drops the line, and I think he immediately regrets it. Either that, or he's just as oblivious to it as he was when he was consoling Scully over Queequeg.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but so at this point, the investigation is all hinged on. Okay, so we got a bunch of inbreds, and they're holding a woman against her will in that house, which is very much TCM, wrong turn kind of flavour. Moving on.
Yes. I was curious where you were going there, Brian.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there. They check out the Peacock's house, complete with decapitated pig's head. They see probable cause with the bloody scissors, because Scully's like, we can't go in. Mulder's like, just help letting himself in. So they flash a torch, and I'm pretty sure there's probably about 200 things within that room that would be probable cause, because it's...
Yeah. This is the one, like I said, a little niggle I have here. Like there's no traps. Like they just walk into the house.
Yeah, because then they set the traps because they kill the sheriff. So they when they kill the sheriff, they know, right, this is it. They're going to be coming for us. Because she even gives them the speech.
But then the back door, like they all rush out to get the pigs, and then do they stop to quickly set a trap again before they leave that door? Because they just rush out to get the pigs.
That's later on.
Yeah, right after the deputy dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what you're talking about? No, when they set the traps.
No. So,
Right.
I'm saying they're not going to set traps now, because as far as they're concerned at this point, no one's onto them.
Right.
They only know that someone's onto them once this scene happens, which is Mulder and Scully go into the house, and then the mother hears them having their conversation under the bed. From that point on, they know their way of life is being threatened. So what do? She sends the boys after the sheriff, and then they batten down the hatches. So at this point, okay. No, there's no traps. So.
I just figured they had them set all the time.
No. It's just they set them because they know that.
That's a fair point. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, so yes, they check the Peacock's house. I think I can't remember who it is. Mulder or Scully says this room alone should convict them because it's just and as I say, it turns out they're being watched. We see a pair of eyes under the bed, really nicely lit with the strip of light across them.
I don't know why. I thought it was under the floorboards.
Right. Okay.
I don't know why I went there, but I just assumed it was someone kind of watching from there.
Well, I don't. I can understand that because I don't think until Mulder pulls her out from under the bed later on, it's not exactly clear where she's watching from, and it's not really important. All you know is that somewhere in the shadows, somebody or something is watching. So we see Sheriff Taylor, on the phone, and he's issued arrests for the Peacocks because obviously Mulder and Scully have phoned it in. Scully asks about the cars because there's some cars parked outside the Peacock's house, and the sheriff gets his gun out before putting it back. So this is there to show that this guy has a gun, but he's never had it out. He's never had it on at the ready because he's always felt safe. And this is probably like the first time in his entire career that he's got his gun out, with contemplating keeping it out. Yeah. And he makes the mistake of putting it away.
As soon as it gets put away, you're like,
yeah,
huge
that's
mistake.
A mistake.
Huge mistake.
That's a mistake, yeah. Okay, so the Peacocks go for a drive, put on some tunes.
Hillbilly road trip.
Hillbilly road trip, that's right.
Yeah.
Basically, to cut a long story short, they go and kill Sheriff Taylor and his wife in brutal fashion. And taking a lesson out of the Quentin Tarantino school book, they brutally kill Sheriff Taylor and his wife to the sound of a really upbeat, folksy kind of 50s tune.
Yeah. That is.
Yeah.
It's brutal. I think the most thrilling and exciting and disappointing part of this scene is the wife, whom the sheriff's getting it. Everything is leading towards him getting it, but there's a genuine feeling that the wife is going to survive, get away. She's staying quiet. She's under the bed. She's out of sight. And when that bed gets flipped over, she's going for. She's done.
It's really go to town, I know, with those clubs.
And you don't get to see much, just the squelching and the swinging, which is
all you need. It's all you need. So I recently rewatched The Hitcher, and it's amazing how little they actually show you in that film, and yet how effective it is as a result of doing so. And you compare that to the remake, in which they show you everything, and it loses the effect. but it's like having that music, the really upbeat kind of 50s tune that is juxtaposed with this horrific act of violence that is, a lot of it is like mostly off screen. It does something to you emotionally that just works, absolutely works. So yeah. So Barney Fife is really shaken. He gives I don't know if his second name is Fife or whether it's just
not.
No, it's not.
They make a joke about that.
Yeah, because that's it. So it's Andy Taylor and his partner's Barney. So,
but this performance is fantastic. Like when he's breaking down and he's like he's seen something horrific and he's like trying to smoke a cigarette. He can. He's trying to. He's somehow goes into automatic pilot and starts reeling off this information about things that have arrived. But he's just shell shocked, and I thought it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Definitely. So he gives Mulder and Scully info, then sits outside while they go in. Scully thinks the lab cocked up the DNA testing on the baby. Mulder theorizes a baby being born as the result of more than one brother's sperm having fertilized the egg. Scully says no. Mulder says result of years and years of inbreeding. Scully still says no because the female would have to be a member of the family and there are none left.
Yep.
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so just this explanation, like I remember when I first watched this episode, this whole bit just completely went over my head.
Right.
Just because it's just not even a concept that it's just not a concept I could grasp. When I first watched this, I'm like, more than one. So what? So due to inbreeding over many years, it's created a mutant kind of thing in the family genes, which means that first the older brother does his business, sperm fertilizes the egg. Second brother comes along, does his business. That sperm fertilizes the same egg.
Mm-hmm.
Ew.
And that's before you get to the third.
And that's before you get to the third. It's just, okay. It's just all kinds of wrong. And then as soon as Scully drops that nugget that, it may be plausible, but only if it's with another family member.
Yeah.
Okay, so Scully is all up for going to the house. Mulder thinks it's too risky, but Barney goes all Chuck Norris, which I really like because he's
Chuck Bronson.
Charlie Bronson, is it? Yeah. Okay. So Scully asks how the Peacocks could have known that Taylor was issuing arrests unless there was someone there in the house when they were there. So that means once again they've got to get back in the house. Although this time,
I've got to say, like outside, Barney gave one of the best performances I've ever seen. But when he comes into that room, his performance is god awful. When he brings out the gun,
it's
so
forgivable.
Tropey, it's caricatured. It's
silly, but that's the point, though, isn't it? It's meant to be, because even Mulder calls that out by calling him Charlie Bronson. You know, it's like that. That's the point. It's meant to, you're meant to. When he comes in and he does that and he cocks his pistol, like, you are meant to roll your eyes. This isn't. It's not a case of bad writing where it's like you roll your eyes and you're like, oh, that was so lame, because Mulder calls it out. He says it's lame. We're meant to feel that way. So
it's, the way I look at those kind of scenes is I can put myself in that situation And what I do is I put myself 5, 10 years in the future, having a flashback to that moment and just going, dear God, what was I thinking? Like, the embarrassment that you would have 10 years removed from that situation is what I feel. I know that's a bit complicated, silly, but
okay. So Mrs. Peacock checks out her boys. Now, I gotta say, and this is probably going to sound weird, but of all the sickening things in this episode, do you know what sickens me most?
Scully pushing a pig?
Nope. It's in this scene just before Mrs. Peacock checks out her boys, when one of her boys chews up some food for her and then puts it in her mouth so that she can... It makes me want to vomit. It literally makes me... Like, the baby, the inbreeding, the brutal violence, I could take it all. But having someone chew something up and then put it in someone else... just makes me... Moving on.
Pretty sure I was eating while I was watching that scene.
Yeah, well, she gives him a pep talk anyway about family. This is the Disney, the Disney pep talk about how families have to stick together and
it's
look
a
out for each
familiar
other.
speech that we've seen played out many times in many Fast and Furious movies.
Yep,
family. It's all about family.
Yep, it's all about family. Yeah. Vin Diesel would be proud.
Mm.
So Mulder and Scully and Barney arrive at the house and make their assault. So they do pigs. Hang on a second.
Pigs is later.
Pigs. They do pigs. Okay, so where have I got? I've missed.
Barney's getting in the front door, and Mulder and Scully are making their way around to the back entrance.
So they make their assault. Is that it? Is that all I've got for notes? I've seriously undernoted. I think you know what's happened here. I've got so caught up in the episode that I've just stopped writing, which happens. Like the climax to this episode, I'm just so in it that it's like, all right, okay. So Mulder looks scared, which I really love actually. So I don't know about you, but even if I was in law enforcement and had training, going into a house like that, I would be bricking it.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought went to just burn it. Like,
yeah, but the thing,
Barney's at the door. I'm just like, just burn it down.
Yeah, but as far as they're concerned, right now, they think there's a victim in there, so a woman who's held against her will.
Collateral damage, right?
Yeah, but I do love seeing the fact that Mulder is scared because it's. Like so few times that I can think of where we see cop shows and whatnot, where the central characters go into a situation and we don't get that sense of fear from them, which is like, yeah, okay, they're brave, they're courageous, but that doesn't mean they don't brick it when they go into a situation like this, which is completely unknown. So Scully leads. Scully takes the lead, which is, let's face it, something we've come to expect.
It's a smart move.
Yeah. But so Barney still being all gung-ho, he just goes straight to the front door, kicks it in, and gets killed by a really gnarly trap.
It's a good old Scatman Crothers tactic, isn't it? I'm here to save the day. Oomph.
Yeah, big time. Mulder assesses what's happening before coming up with a plan. That plan involves Scully saying, "Baramu, Baramu." So they need to create a distraction, so they let the pigs loose from the peacocks.
A slight
pig farm.
argument there. I'd say that Scully lets the pigs loose because Mulder's kind of cowering in a corner.
Yeah, she's basically pushing the ass of this pig while saying "Baram because for whatever reason she thinks that's going to get him moving.
It's big. That's what the pig says in Babe.
Yeah. Okay. Is it Mulder who says something along the lines of "Is it wrong that I'm quite turned on right now?" or something like that?
Yeah.
Quite excited right now. Yeah. Would you think less of me if I told you that I was quite excited right now or something? But he just, which I think is. I think it speaks a lot about Mulder's character because I think it's something of a bit. It's a bit like Chandler in Friends. You know how he uses humor as a defense mechanism. Mm-hmm. I think because Mulder's bricking it in this situation, I think that's what he uses his humor. And I think it says a lot about his character that perhaps you could look at in maybe other episodes where he's dropped jokes like that. But here it seems to stand out because we know he's scared. It's interesting that he uses humor in that way to kind of break the tension. So they disarm a trap, and Mulder, they go into the house, they're checking out all these pictures while the brothers are all outside trying to round up the pigs. Yep. And Mulder picks up this newspaper with a really sad look on his face. And then it says Elvis dead at 42. And then they see pictures of the family, the Peacock family, throughout the generations as they're getting more and more deformed as it's going on. And then they find the mother.
Yeah.
The secret under the bed. And I gotta say, don't matter how many times I've watched this episode, every time they pull her out and she just starts wailing, it gets a visceral, emotional reaction out of me. There's just something about it that makes my skin crawl. And I feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And
it doesn't shy away. It gives you a static overhead shot and lets you see everything.
Yeah. I
mean, there's nothing really grotesque or something you can show, but it's just it's horrific to look at. It's more the implication of what she's been used for.
Yeah. But through her own like it's her planning, so to speak. It's not like the boys have taken it upon themselves. It's like, no, this is her who's behind it all. It's her who's thought we've got to continue the family line. We've got to keep going. So it's just it's so wrong on so many levels, and it's like I can understand the complaints that were sent in over this episode. I really can. And the thing is, this was released in the 90s, the mid-90s. Like, there was nothing like this on TV at that time. Nothing that went... Like, even now, when you look at the worst shows that are on TV, the ones that are most graphic, even now, this stands toe-to-toe with them, if not being even more sickening. Like, I can't think of anything that I've seen in recent years that has pushed the boundary, and there has been a lot that has pushed that boundary, but I still can't think of anything that I've seen in recent years that compares to this episode with regards to what they're putting on screen and what they're getting away with.
But this scene, this episode, most definitely had to inspire Wrong Turn.
Oh, big time.
Had
big
to.
time.
We've spoken before about how sometimes X-Files takes from movies, sometimes it inspires. This is definitely a case of the inspiration here, because when she comes out from under the bed, from what I remember, it's been a while since I've seen it, but that's a key scene in Wrong Turn as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen Wrong Turn, and I only saw it once. But certainly, obviously, Wrong Turn wasn't even a thing when this episode came out.
I think Wrong Turn was the early 2000s, 2002, 2003.
Yeah. So this, like, I think what their inspiration from this episode is clearly Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then I think it's things have a knock-on effect, don't they? They take inspiration from Texas Chainsaw, then Wrong Turn takes inspiration from this, and so on and so forth. That's just the way art moves. It's sickening anyway. It's really disgusting. Scully doesn't know what they can do, as the mother doesn't seem to be there against her will. No. Mulder tells her to try and convince her boys to come quietly so they don't get hurt. But Mrs. Peacock is proud of her boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
family values.
Mulder sees them making their way back inside, and it's this point that it's like do or die. It's us or them.
He bricks it even more so.
He bricks it even more so, and I really don't blame him. But carnage ensues. Gun barrels are emptied, and two of the brothers end up getting killed with great difficulty. It seems to take an awful lot to bring these two down, and then by the time they have brought them down, they realise the mother is gone, presumably taken by the eldest son,
Edmund.
Edmund, yep.
Yeah.
So we get a final scene. With Ed, we hear talking in the trunk of a car, and then the trunk opens, and Edmund gets out and then climbs in and drives off. Yes. It's just like, okay, yeah. Like, why not have the back seats down? If she's in the trunk, why not have the back seats down so he could just, and then he can kill two birds with one stone and talk to her whilst driving. Yeah.
I think they were having a moment.
Right. Okay. So,
because normally in these kind of, I say generic American movies, when there's a parked car.
Yeah. Do you wrap up? Go.
Yeah. I think this movie. I keep calling it a movie.
You've always done it. You just do it. Just roll with it. That's who you are, man. Just go with it.
This episode feels like a movie. It's so atmospheric. It's so I'd say cinematic in the way that it's shot. When you get into the house and it's got the dim lights and it's so wonderfully decorated by the production crew who've done a wonderful job here. I think the performance was great. I think the fact that you see the peacocks sparingly or in shadows or from a distance is really it really works well for the show, creating that kind of ickiness, but you don't get to see the seams almost by being too close to it. The whole general ickiness of the episode is just, it starts horrific and somehow gets worse. Like, and this is like a primetime TV show. It's just marvelous. I think the motherhood subject for Scully is terrific. I even like some of the sillier moments where Mulder is trying to get the TV to work, where he eventually half sees a nature program and then begins to quote it back to Scully later on, once the sheriff's assistant Barney Fife has been murdered, and he's quoting back what he heard on the wildlife program. It's just it's true to what he's seeing. It's funny. It has its levity moments, but this is truly X-Files deep within horror. I don't think they'll even come anything close to this horror-wise the rest of the series. I'll know I've not seen it. I feel that way. For me, it's a 5 out of 5, Brian. It really is.
Yeah. This is better than any Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. It's better than any Wrong Turn movie. I know that's not hard, but it's just I really don't like those kind of movies. Anyone who knows me from my other channel, they will probably know that. And if somebody told me what this episode was before I'd seen it, they said, "Oh, it's X-Files doing Texas Chainsaw Massacre," I'd have been like, "Oh, crap." I'd just been like, "Why? Why do they have to go there?" But the execution of it is so fantastic, because what those movies don't seem to understand is that you can put all the blood and splatter and ickiness you want into it, but unless you have character and theme, you've got nothing. And this is a film. Now I'm doing it. This is an episode about survival. Whether it's the genetic survival, carrying on your gene pool by any means necessary, or the literal kind of caught in a death, do or die situation and fighting for your life kind of survival. And it's also about how the world is getting darker, how times used to be simpler. That as we get older, we realise that innocence is dying, and that couldn't be better encapsulated than it is in this horrific family. It's just, it's great. It's humorous when it needs to be, without, like I said before, it doesn't go on the wrong side of that line. It's a perfect balancing act. The horror is really horrific. The humour works really well, gets a good laugh out of me, and actually feeds into the characters as well. Like I say, like I mentioned with Mulder, it kind of highlights something about his character. It is a great episode. I think in previous times I'd have said this is a 4 out of 5 for me, because it's just too icky for me. But as is often the case, just sitting down, watching it, really analysing it, every scene. It's so expertly handled. It's so well done. And to say that this is a TV episode that's better than any movies I've seen of this ilk, 5 out of 5 for me, for sure.
Good. Now, why don't you tell me a little bit about Teleco? Is this another 5 out of 5 classic episode, Brian?
No.
It's better than that?
I was not looking forward to this one. I'm not looking forward to it, I should say. It's... So think Tombs, but really bad and probably quite racist. So it has it plays out.
Now, are we talking like nasty racist, or are we talking like 70s comedian racism where they're not realising how terrible they're really being?
Yes, something like that. So it's about this Tombs-like man, but he's African, and rather than stealing livers, he's stealing skin pigmentation. So he basically, so he attacks other black men. He steals their skin pigmentation, making them white as he kills them.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go? It's as bad as that sounds. I know a lot of people who really like the episode. I don't know what drugs they've been smoking, but we'll get into it next time.
I mean, the other thing it would put the cherry on top is if they called the episode Colourblind. I mean, that sounds as if it'd be. But you know what? I'll go into it. I'll take it for what it is.
Who knows? It may be much better than I remember. All I remember is thinking that the way it plays out, the structure of it, the reveals, it feels like they're trying to redo Squeeze, but with a monster that's nowhere near as good, and he's also kind of racist.
Just curious, because we did have the unrelenting fear that Tessa Dos Bitches was going to be horrendous. And I know it wasn't a great episode, but it wasn't as bad as its reputation. So
Yeah.
it could be Dodcam, it could be Teso dos Beaches, but we shall see, I suppose.
Telica doesn't have the kind of reputation Teso dos Beaches has. I think you ask most X-Files fans, they're like, oh, Telica's well better than Teso dos Beaches. And I'm right now, until we watch it again, I'm like, is it though?
The only thing is guaranteed is that it'll be higher than Teso dos Beaches on IMDb ratings.
That's for certain. That's for certain.
Yes.
Okay.
As always, thank you for watching on the YouTube channel or listening on your preferred podcast service. We appreciate it and would feel very grateful if you would like or give us a 5-star rating, whatever you're doing. That would be fantastic. Allow people to discover our little X-Files Revisited podcast. Share the love. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week for episode 3, Telico. Bye.